Recent pronouncements on the Anglophone crisis, the protracting crisis by Cameroonians of English-speaking fabric, have been placing their authors in rather uncomfortable situations after the likes of Atanganji Paul, Chief Tabe Tando, and Senator Peter Mafani Musonge. It is apparently the turn of the likes of Ekema Patrick, the mayor for Boya, as well as Sama Francis, the former Bar Council president. Elsewhere, and with the curtains gradually coming down on the 2016-2017 school year, eyebrows continue rising to question the whereabouts of 500,000 computers promised university students across Cameroon on the 10th of February 2016 by President Paul Biya himself. This is Toughtalk, who set the ball rolling in a jiffy. He's joining us rather on the panel after quite a while. Eddy, Etawo, you're a senior reporter for The Star. That's a Limbe-based newspaper, right?
Yes, Divine. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, Eddy.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
I like it when you say it's always a pleasure, because you are no stranger to controversy. The last time you were here, you harvested a lot of verbal backlashes. Were you aware?
Yes, of course I was. I knew I stepped on many toes when I reacted to some issues here, but that is my stand, and I always like to maintain a blunt stand when it comes to those issues.
And despite all of this, you still maintain your stance regarding the Anglophone crisis?
Yes, of course, I still maintain my stand, because when we talk about the Anglophone crisis, when you talk about a political debate like the one that is unfolding in Cameroon, it must be good with defined terms, or at least tell the people the background from which you are talking from.
In other words, you're suggesting that emotions should be left out?
Yeah, emotions should be left out, and because people must. There are two schools of thought: those who want cessation, complete cessation, and those who are for a united Cameroon that is decentralized. Okay. But in the course of the debate, many arguments are coming from both areas, and in such a debate you can't develop. So we must make a dichotomy between from which angle, from which background are you talking? Are you a secessionist? If you're a secessionist, you don't have arguments in the debate that is unfolding. You know what happened in the Biafra War? Go for the guns, go for the wars. That is the language of secession. But where we are now, it is dialogue. I guess. And when we dialogue, there is a way of looking at it.
I guess a lot of people watching us now must have started stinging you already with verbs and words from wherever they are. Thanks for watching. This is Toughtalk as usual on Canal English, live from Douala. Elie Smith is always a globe-trotting journalist who probably has found a home at Canal English. Elie?
Yes, I
it's
think
always
so.
A pleasure.
It's a shared. It's shared. The pleasure is shared, and I'm happy to be on set with Eddy, Etawo today. And I want to differ a bit with him, right? We are in a democracy. To try to deny people who have secessionist movement or thought a word or a say means that you are a dictator. It is in a democracy, all shade of opinions have to express themselves. And bringing up the problem of Biafra is tantamount to scaremongering. If Biafra never became what it became, there are a lot of other things that made Biafra not to actualize. And I want to believe that one day Biafra will be born again, because the dynamics are there in favor of the creation of a Biafran republic. Okay, the debate is not here,
except you want to take 10 seconds, Eddy.
What I'm saying is that the language of secession is the language of violence.
Okay, thanks. Let's leave it there. We'll come back to this in the course of our discussions for this other edition of Toughtalk. Recently, Elie Smith, and you have witnessed, we faced a lot of technical hitches which kept us off the airways for a couple of days earlier this month. But thank God things are gradually getting back to normal.
Yes, things are gradually getting back to normal. An example is I've been on the social media or on the internet. We are now able to upload one of our programs, which most people who are watching us have been wondering why our programs are not online. So I want to reassure them that things are gradually coming back to normal, and we hope that it is going to be so for till the end of the year.
Okay, now let's go back to meet Donald Njilo, who is on the machines. Remember, on behind the cameras, rather, is Emmanuel Bevirka. But let's go meet them and get a reaction, how it all happened, how people took it when we went off air. That's just to give you a taste of how Canal de English is watched across Cameroon.
The English has actually served a lot of people this way, but these days we have been very, very disappointed with the level of their signals. Well, we believe that they should be working towards this as a matter of urgency, considering that it is the lone channel in the whole of Cameroon that supplies totally in English language. Well, we hope they just do something. Thank you very much.
So on Saturday, and this is going to be our icebreaker for this edition, on Saturday, June the 17th, law enforcement officers on two separate occasions in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé, actually dispersed crowds of young people who were queuing up to get themselves enrolled on voter registers ahead of elections constitutionally slated for 2018. One of the campaigns targeting the enrollment of 11 million voters was organized by, well, one of the youngest ever to have voiced his intention to run for presidency, Elie, and the other was organized or arranged by the National Organizing Secretary of the People's Action Party, PAP. He's called Njang Dennis. He was actually yanked away to detention briefly before being released. But is the government scared of massive voter registration, Eddy Etawo?
Yes, as obvious as anything. It should be clear that being unable to handle the Anglophone crisis with precision and probity thus far, I think the government will do everything to prevent massive registration so that it can go ahead with its rigging machinery. That is as obvious as anything.
Okay, so in fact, I mentioned it a while ago, Elie. Njang Dennis, who is the organizing secretary of PAP, People's Action Party, which of course was founded by Paul Ayabine, who remains in incarceration, was arrested and detained briefly. Well, he says that he actually served the authorities a declaration of his intention to hold the meeting. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the authorities were taken aback. So why would you come, you know, breaking up a group of young people only willing to fulfill their civic duties?
No, I think my statement on this is not going to be different from that of Eddy, because I think the government of Cameroon is simply afraid that a number of, if the voters registry is the number of those who have registered do increase, it also lowers perhaps their chances of winning, in spite of the fact that they have a formidable rigging machine. That's the reason why they are afraid.
And so some have interpreted this to mean that the government is scared of anything that has connotations with Paul Ayabine, who remains in incarceration since his arrest on January 21 in Yaoundé.
I think
is he such a threat to the government, Paul Ayabine?
Paul remains
even though on retirement recently.
Paul remains a threat to this government, and up to this point, I don't exactly know why government is scared of Paul, but what is certain is that anything Paul is repelled with a lot of energy. So I think there is something government is hiding, and with time we'll get to know why the government of this country is scared of a single individual from very backward Acquire.
You said maybe there's something the government is hiding. Elie, could it be, in other words, that there is something Paul is hiding?
No.
Others have been more vocal than he has been on the Anglophone problem, but they're not behind bars.
It is true, but
why him?
But you have to understand that this government is a very vindictive government. If you could recall, Paul was an MP of the ruling CPDM party, and if I'm not wrong, he was perhaps the only CPDM MP who openly voiced his opposition to Bia's plan to elongate his tenure as president of the republic.
Right.
And as a despot and people supporting him, they would never want such a person. So I think behind all those Anglophone movement, the assertive posture that Aya has been put in as far as Anglophone nationalism is concerned, I think under it lies also this grievance, the grievance of the ruling party that he wanted to scuttle their campaign, to elongate their tenure in power, or show the whole world that the CPDM, not everyone in the CPDM was for Paul Biya, who has destroyed this country completely, to continue ruining this country everlastingly as he wants to.
So maybe payback time for
just to
Aya
add
Paul.
something to that, I think
Yes,
many of the opinion that Aya articulates the Anglophone problem more than every other person, and as far as it stands, he epitomizes that kind of person that can champion the Anglophone cause.
Okay.
So the government, as I told you, is very scared of secession, and someone who is scared of secession would be afraid of somebody who can ably, because the government knows that Aya has the potential to lead the Anglophone community if it came to that.
Okay.
And so I think they're doing everything, to preempt that move.
Okay, now let's go back and listen to a voice clip. This was done in Yaoundé shortly after the release of Njang Dennis. Remember, we told you he's the National Organizing Secretary of the People's Action Party. He spoke, and his first words will want to draw a line between Aya, the person, and the People's Action Party, the party. Let's hear him.
I want to sound it loud and clear that Aya Paul is Aya Paul, Pap is Pap. Yes, he is a chairman and the president of the party, but that does not stop the party from what our intentions are. We are also a political party, like any other political party, preparing for the next elections in 2018. So there's a need for us to sensitize our militants, sympathizers, to go and also massively register, and tell them the way forward for the party. We're supposed to have a meeting for the party, a meeting that was declared at the level of the senior divisional officer's office. We're making preparations on how the meeting will take place. We just saw police people everywhere because they have information that Aya's son is supposed to have a meeting here. So I said, no, it's not Aya's son, it is PAP, Popular Action Party. Yes, Aya is the chairman, but it's not Aya's son. They said, no, they are going to dispute him. Let me go and explain them. I said, okay, no problem. I went there. They said, they took my statement. They said, no, it is not within their competence to handle it. They are taking me straight to the Commissariat Central. I went there to the Commissariat Central. They asked me a question that, do I have any authorization? I said, no, we are in the system of what? Declaration. I declared the meeting since on the 12th. And I had the receipt of the declaration. Later on, they liberated me and said I should go there and ask all my militants and sympathizers to return back home, that meeting cannot take place because the meeting has no authorization. It's not the first time that we have been having meetings in Yaoundé under such system, declaration. And there is no point in time where we have ever had such repression from the police that to come and stop the meeting. Because always, whenever we have a meeting, I go for that declaration.
And so that was Njang Dennis, the National Organizing Secretary of the People's Action Party, founded, of course, by incarcerated Aya Paul Abine. Now, Patrick Ekema, mayor of the Boya Council in Kamu Southwest Region, is no stranger to controversy. In recent months, the die-hard militant of the governing CPDM party has been at the center of multi-form scandals. And as we speak, he is claiming the headlines yet again after bragging openly at a recent council session that he personally masterminded the frustration of a Pacific march organized in Boya last December 5 by militants and other dignitaries of the Social Democratic Front. I'll stay with you, Elie, to begin with this. Ekema Patrick is clearly addicted to controversy. He loves them, the scandals.
He loves the scandals, and there are other scandals brewing that may one day take him away because, he's a kind of guy who seems to be just boastful, thin-skinned, addict to praise-seeking, and squandering records, because in terms of management, I doubt whether he has ran or done something extraordinary since he's managing the town or city of Boya. And the thing is, he doesn't even care because next year there will be elections. And claiming what he's claiming now simply means that he doesn't want to be elected, except he thinks that they are going to rig the elections as they've always been doing. But this time around, Ekema should know that it will not happen.
Okay. Now, the Post newspaper, and that's from where we called this information, the Post newspaper quotes Mayor Ekema, stating that the march that was planned by the SDF dignitaries, including Chairman Nijon Fundi from the Moliko Stadium to the governor's office, was a potential danger for the municipality because the consequences it might have provoked back then in December, in the heat of the Anglophone crisis, could have been disastrous.
I think that is a very ridiculous way of reading people who have all this while tried to contribute to the building of this nation. The SDF party has been a party, though controversial, but trying in its own way to build this country in its own way. I think Mayor Ekema's declaration are the most ridiculous statements that any politician of that magnitude has made in recent times. In fact, Atanganji, I think he has ridiculed himself like no one has ridiculed himself. You mentioned Atanganji. I mentioned Atanganji. Atanganji didn't do what this man has said. You can't. Once elected a mayor, you go above party leanings. You become a mayor for all Cameroonians, and an intelligent mayor would listen to political parties, and even encourage them to do what they want to do, so that they brighten public opinion, and upon that you work for all shades of opinions of Cameroonians. For you to pretend to presume that you blocked a party or a part of Cameroonians from expressing their views, I think it's an abomination. Secondly, he could not have done that without siphoning party funds. Maybe apparently he was saying that, yes, council funds. But council funds are not to be used to defend CPDM thoughts. They are there for the development of the Cameroonian people in Buea municipality. You talk about siphoning funds, council funds. Let me give you an example. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. Yes. But what happened on December the 5th was this, Elie Smith. The SDF dignitaries were actually trapped and blocked in at the Parliamentarian Flat Hotel at Bokuango in Buea by thugs and security officials from the council, which means some money was spent to achieve this feat. That's what I'm saying, that that money was erroneously spent. We don't spend money to block people who are there to bring ideas to help the country advance for the good of everyone. The SDF party is a necessary, is a legalized party in this country, and it must express itself when necessary. I think what Ekema did, he should go back to Ekema. I think what Mayor Ekema did, to my mind, he will never be pardoned by most Cameroonians. In fact, to take responsible Cameroonians and block them in a hotel and behave the way you did, and to come out openly and boast, I think this shows the level of mayors the intellectual, and for us to, and this is a call to most Cameroonians, when next we vote our mayors in, we should check the intellectual level, the moral level of some of our mayors, because from the look of things, many mayors are letting people down. And I would want to call on this of decentralization. We cannot develop with decentralization with this kind of mayors. Okay, now it's good that you mentioned it. Elie Smith, the thugs, that's how some call them, who were hired, now the mayor says he did it, to block the SDF dignitaries at the hotel in Buea, actually waved placards on which was inscribed words like, go back and march in Bamenda. Well, the thing is that it's not the first time we're hearing statements like this. There's been Cam No Go, there's been, attacks on Northwesterners by Southwesterners in the Southwest. Yes, but Divine, I would like us to make a kind of clear-cut distinction. Yes. People of the Southwest region are law-abiding people and very welcoming people. Most of those who stoke division or stir grievances, those politicians who survive on trying to seek the praise of a regime that survives on division.
they are not representatives of people of the Southwest region. Peter Mafani Musonge, Ekema, who insult people of the Northwest region, are not representatives of people of the Southwest, so he has to be put aside. A man like Ekema, I think the thing is that he just wants the TV to stage his loyalty to the party, but I don't think he's sincere. Okay. He's not a sincere. And the thing with people like Ekema is that they survive on stirring division, stoking grievances, in order to transform people into vengeful lots. And that's what he wants to do. But the danger in doing that is that people are going to bear or keep a kind of grudge against him, and it is going to be detrimental to his own campaign. Okay. And I think the only thing he has to do is to come out and be humble enough and apologize. He is wrong. He has to show us that he has governed or been managing Boya at his best, rather than using the money of Boya to be sleeping at Hotel Sawa and everything like that. Okay. So that is something Mr. Ika. And if Mr. Ekema wants people to expose him, we are going to help expose him.
I think he's been exposed several times on social media, including, of course, Facebook. He's been shown in very uncomfortable situations. But reading between the lines, and Elie was mentioning it, Eddy, yes. This outing by the mayor of Boya is not really naive. That's what some observers proceed, because, well, the times are there. We all know what's in store for some of these people. He may, and that's what the observers say, he may tactfully be attracting attention from the powers that be, so he could be appointed minister or something one of these days.
But you see, we don't, in a country like us, you do everything to serve the people of Cameroon, not to become a sycophant for one or two people. I mean, we don't, sycophancy is not the kind of game in a Cameroon like our own, where we've spent almost 50 years with a people and there's no advancement. I think this is the time Cameroonians of English extraction should pin their legs down and be vocal and support what would favor Anglophones as Anglophones in Cameroon in general, and not just playing to the gallery for people up there to admire them and appoint them to ministerial posts. Okay. I think that is selfish politics, which for me has no place in my consideration.
So back in December, it actually took the intervention of local administrator, the SDO for Boya, Paul Kwam, who actually went to the hotel and led out the SDF dignitaries, and they held their march up from Moliko Stadium to the governor's office. But then the question is, Elie Smith, that attitude by Ekema actually provoked a retaliation only days later on December the 8th in Bamenda, when the CPDM came to stage its rally and they were asked to leave town.
Exactly, because I think they say in English, respect begets respect and violence calls for violence. So when Mr. Ekema acted the way he acted, perhaps he forgot that there are other parts in Cameroon whereby he will not, the CPDM doesn't have that type of influence that they seems to have in Boya as of now. Okay. And that's the reason why in Bamenda, the people of Bamenda replicated by refusing that the CPDM should not organize her own rally in Bamenda. I'm happy you said it today, because the fake media, the state media, who are very good at fake news, made people to think that the action of the people of Bamenda was just a kind of an indigenous action, which they never let us understood that it was in retaliation to the stupid attitude of Mr. Ekema. Okay. in Boya some days before.
Hello, Buddy Adams. Hello, good morning. Good morning, Buddy. Thanks very much for being online and waiting on us. How is Boya this morning, please?
Boya is good. In spite of the rain this morning, I think the weather has returned to normal and it's bright, so sunshine.
Okay, I guess you must have listened to some of our last comments here. You don't need to wear glasses, Buddy Adams, to, say that the mayor, Ekema, has firmly placed himself in the firing line of hardliners of the Anglophone cause.
Evidently, and it is very glaring that he does not side with or does not buy the stance of the Anglophone. His actions throughout this period have been, we can call them political miscalculation, given that elections are due next year.
Okay.
In fact, it would appear that he is doing something that is not very positive for the CPD and for the ruling party.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Budi, so can we safely conclude that he's a thick-skinned politician, Mayor Ekema? He doesn't care about what the public would think about him. He doesn't care about what his actions may leave behind as consequences. Is that because he's so sure that there's no challenger in Boya after the former mayor was, well, flawed?
Well, he was really loved by the people at the end of it, in spite of that disagreement, political disagreement. The population actually cherished him, and the present mayor has just made him more loved by the people.
Okay. Okay, now let me take you on a personal note on this one. Do you think he will be re-elected in 2018?
To me, I think he thinks that he's doing his last mandate, or let me say, this is mandate is just one and all.
Okay.
Because any politician would be thinking about elections next year. We try to see with the people, even if you are taking a line, his declarations in public are such that you could do that maybe within your party, not at a public meeting like the council session.
Okay, Budi, I want to thank you very much, but I'll not let you go until I get your reaction on this. As students at the University of Boya are waiting for the 500,000 computers promised them last year by President Paul Biya.
This is really a coincidence, because yesterday I was discussing with some friends, and we revisited some of the pictures that were taken when they thanked the head of state, President Biya, for giving the 500,000 computers. So it's actually a joke. It's a joke. I don't see them coming, given that government is in dire state, given that times are very hard. It is very difficult. You can hear people complaining left and right of not having their salaries or their dues. Retired civil servants complaining. So it shows that government is in dire need of finances, and I don't think that they can afford to do that well, except they will do as they usually do. We indebt our future generations, that we can take it as a loan, and then indebt our future, our children and grandchildren.
Thanks very much, Budi Adams, and our greetings to the entire staff of the Post newspaper. You actually work there as one of the longest-serving editors. Thanks once again.
Thank you very much.
And so when we come back, we'll be discussing the 500,000 computers promised university students across Cameroon on the 10th of February 2016 by President Paul Biya. Let's take a respite. And so in an address to university students and Cameroonian youth in general on the 10th of February 2016, President Paul Biya personally announced his intention to make a donation of 500,000 laptops to university students across the country, both in state-run universities and private ones. But the 2016-2017 academic year has come and is gone now, if you take out the writing of the GC exams and so on, Elie Smith. Where are the computers?
Well, it has just become like a fairy tale. And I want to think that Budi Adam was not wrong, because those 500 computers, or 500,000 computers,
500,000 computers,
were to be manufactured in China, and it seems as if it's a Chinese loan to give us, which I think was, first of all, not well calculated. Why not bring that amount of money here, create a local company to employ Cameroonians? Okay. But I also think it's going to be very difficult, because we are in a dire strait right now. Economic crisis has hit in. We have difficulties to pay civil servants. We have difficulties even to service our internal and external debts. I think the government now has to cherry pick as to which program is important. And I think that computer promises, I think students just need to forget about it. It's not going to be realized.
No,
in fact, across,
on
yes,
the contrary,
Eddy.
I don't think the students have to forget about that promise. It's a promise from the head of state.
Which means it could take 10 years
and
to,
it could take 10 years.
mature.
I would give you, I was just coming to that 10-year span. The Mamfe, the Kumamamfe Road was promised this 10 years ago, but today we're having it done almost. What we must understand is that actually we have financial problems, which you and me understand. Boko Haram, the crisis, the insecurity crisis in the north, and the fact that we have to organize the African Nations Cup 2019.
So was the president so myopic? Was he so myopic not to have seen these things? Boko Haram has been there since
but
2014,
as a matter of fact, he put in a program, and normally presidents speak like that, and then they look for money too. It's a big project, and I think students should just be patient with their president. I think sooner or later. First, he just announced that now the administrative authorities in universities have to check the number of students that are qualified for those, and then after that, look for the money.
And that's exactly where, Eddy,
yes.
That's exactly where observers say this is a presidential scam. Elie Smith, because if you count the number of university students across Cameroon, they're close to 1 million.
Exactly.
These are official statistics from the National Institute of Statistics, Eddy. So this was a scam. Students actually poured out into the streets to march and give thanks to the head of state, but where are the computers?
Well, now I even want to blame those students, because this is a regime that has been lying them for so long, and not lying only those students, but lying on Cameroonians. And I beg to differ a bit with this Kuma-Manfe road. It's not just 10 years, it's 56 years, that road. And so when you make a promise to your son, I'm going to bring you a candy from work this evening, so your son has to wait for 1 week before you bring it. I think that the government is that we have a government that lives on slogans and promises and manipulates Cameroonians that, I'm sorry, it is going to be hard. They're a bit stupid. You have been with somebody who has deceived you, destroyed your economy, and makes false promises, and yet you keep on believing what they are saying.
No,
a good government cannot get up and make
something.
Yes.
If I may say something, look, I mean, the gift of a candy to your son, you see, when you make allegations, when you make analogies, let them be good analogies. You see, you are talking of a colossal 500 computers.
500,000?
500,000 computers. That money needs to be raised. So the two cannot really be the same. Then
can you allow me to respond to what you're trying to say?
Yes, yes.
Do you think that a real head of state will just get up one day and make promises of that sort of colossal amount as you're saying, without thinking? If he does that, it means that he's a liar. He doesn't even know what is going around in his country. No, because you cannot do it and claim that it is because of Boko Haram. Boko Haram has been there. You cannot do it and say we're going to organize Africa Cup of Nations. When did he make that promise? When did he make that promise? And you go around borrowing monies around the world. And the thing is that Paul Biya has failed. He was just there to deceive Cameroonian youth, and he might, as you said, we wait for 10 years. We might, by December or January, deliver those promises simply because he wants to win the elections.
I'll pour some wine in your cup if you give me 1 second. Okay. Elie Smith, in a nation where youth joblessness is skyrocketing, these computers should come as a laudable venture, as a laudable gift to students. Considering that if you own a computer, it's easy to get connected and get a job abroad while working from your room, for example.
Yes and no. First of all, this is the same country that keeps cutting internet connections for students. If you have a country whereby the government is a bit conscious of its people, why take such an amount of money? Why not create a company here in Cameroon that is going to offer jobs to those unemployed Cameroonians? We have a teeming youth unemployment in this country. No, I think it is a country that it is a regime that is manipulative. They are just strive in lies telling, and also like to stage their popularity, which is not real. I think the government of Cameroon has just shown that they are incompetent.
Okay, so last month, Eddy, Etawo, officials at the University of Yaoundé 1 began elaborating lists of beneficiaries We all know that some of them, the students, are going to go out on graduation. So graduated students going to come back and get the computers.
No.
That's one thing. The second is that owning a computer is one thing, but accessing the internet is another. It's like having a car without fuel if they just give you a computer and don't charge it.
But you see, this promise was made to university students. So it's unfortunate some people may graduate out of university before the gift actually comes.
So they lose.
When you graduate from
no longer a
university,
university
you lose. You don't longer qualify. The gift was targeted some specific people. So once you graduate from the university, you don't longer qualify for that gift. I can tell you that I buried my uncle twice around my Yemen as I moved to bury him in Malfi.
Twice?
Twice. I buried two relatives.
Okay.
You see, I was going, the roads were very bad. But today, those who are lucky today can take their corpses straight to Malfi. So some people are lucky, and whenever they are lucky, they get through. So there will be a time, and there will be some Cameroonians who will get. I really believe that the president will do everything to grant these computers to university students sometimes, somehow.
Elie, if you don't mind, I'll stay with him 1 second, a minute longer. The presidential generosity is going to cost not President Paul Biya, but the state of Cameroon, 75 billion CFA francs. Who's going to pay for the money?
It's obviously going to be a huge contract that the state of Cameroon is going to pay. It can't come from
the president stands on TV and says, I decide to give you 500,000 laptops, and it turns out that is the country.
I don't think, Divine, that Mr. Paul Biya spoke that day as Paul Biya. He spoke as the president of this country. And it was a promise from the president of this country to Cameroonian students.
The money is actually a loan from China's Exim Bank, as usual. Reimbursement time frame, interest rate, we don't have a clue, Elie Smith.
We don't have a clue. My fear is that China is ripping off us in a big way, but that our dictators accept it to do, because not only Cameroon, Paul Biya accepted. No, you say that Paul Biya stood there and spoke as the president of Cameroon, right?
Yes.
But the state-owned media and their affiliates, what do they say? They say Paul Biya. They personalize everything.
Students went out to march. They didn't
and when they went out to march, they didn't say the government of Cameroon. They thanked their God called Paul Biya, who is a demagogue.
But you must
75 billion, my brother.
You are an intellectual to be able to sift out what is necessary from what's
No, I'm not an intellectual.
No,
I just say things I don't want to
I believe that no individual, if you tell me you will give me 50 million francs today, I would doubt it. The president has promised the president has promised Cameroonians computers, and whether interest rate or not, we are in an age that needs computers. Okay. Some of them would come up with investments.
I think you said somewhere that Ekema is a sycophant at the beginning of this program.
Yes,
and I want to believe that you are behaving a kind of like a sycophant. You are trying to cloud Paul Biya from having correct judgment, because sycophants like you tend to shield him from the reality.
Okay.
Especially when you have a government like Paul Biya, a president who is a prideful person, fully forgetting that you are goaling him.
No, you can't call me a sycophant because I don't work for the government.
Eddy,
I don't have, but
I'm sorry for to be hard on you that way, but because saying like that is that you are tolerating the demagoguery of a president who has
Thanks very much.
But my problem is that with a personality of that one, I have to give a personality of that one the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, now
until he finally fails me, I think those 500,000 computers will come, whether by hook or crook. Okay. Whether if the government of Cameroon is going to take a loan or not,
Eddy,
Cameroonians should wait for.
Just to let you know that the 500 computers, I like it when you insist on computers, are not really computers. In fact, they are not even laptops. They are called notebooks, and they are being manufactured by a company called Sichuan Telecom Engineering Company Limited, based in China. Now, the difference is that a notebook should sell at about 30,000 CFA francs, between 30 and 46,000 CFA francs. In China, where they manufacture it, And instead of the 150,000 CFA francs the Higher Education Minister Famen Dongo recently claimed each of the notebooks will cost. Another thing to take into account is the fact that in 2016, while President Paul Biya was making the announcement, Rwanda and Cote d'Ivoire actually spent far less than 75 billion CFA francs to install computer assembly plants in their various countries. Now let's go up to Kumbo in the Northwest Province. Thanks to Lambert Kevin, our reporter out there. We had these reactions from the man in the streets in Kumbo.
It's a laudable initiative appreciated by all Cameroonians. It's not even a few months ago. It's something that happened before the beginning of last academic year. We heard about it before the beginning of the last academic year. Now the year is coming to an end. We've not received them. We are very disappointed that a head of state can promise students 5,000 computers and the academic year is running out when they have not been given. And what puzzles me so much is the fact that when our head of state paid a visit to Italy and visited one university there, he was decorated for encouraging education in Cameroon. And one of the reasons for that medal that was given to him for encouraging education in Cameroon was because he awarded 5,000 computers to students, university students. But it's unfortunate that they have never seen the computers and he has been awarded a medal for doing that.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
For that question, I think like any other project that they are always promised and failed, laptops from the beginning I knew it was not going to be different. You know, many students had wished this could come to pass, especially the less privileged, who thought after paying their school fees, go to the school year, they will end up having a laptop that could help them to carry out some research. Even some who had the means to acquire a laptop, maybe forfeit just not the means and stop. Maybe going in for their laptops, thinking that the head of state has made a promise, like a father, he was going to give it. But surprisingly, this is the end of the year, and I've not had any issue about the laptop. I've not had any student displaying a laptop that this is that laptop promised by the head of state to the students of the universities. And I also want to think that the number of laptops that was promised, 500,000, was too insignificant compared to the number of students that we have in the various state universities. Why not the other higher institutions which are at the level of the universities?
I think somebody said the refrain of the Cameroon national anthem is Land of Promise. And I think it's just part of the refrain of our anthem. I mean the English version of our national anthem, which says Land of Promise. Now, he has promised, and you know, you give a promise and that promise is not fulfilled, then that promise is just in vain. Now, he promised 500,000 laptops, something like that, and it was for students, university students. Now, the question is it for private university students? Is it for students who are enrolled in the state university? Because if you want to take a census on the number of students we have in Cameroon, there are above 1 million. And now you promise 500,000 laptops to students, to university students.
Fortunately, our producers keep insisting we can go through the end of those voice feeds thanks to Lambert Kevin from Kimbo. That's the capital of the Bui division in the northwest region of Cameroon. Thanks once again, Lambert. Putting one and two together, Eddy Etawo, yes. These computers may finally come sometime in 2018 and very close to the presidential poll, constitutionally slated. That would be another foul play on the part of the incumbent.
No, as far as those computers are concerned, I don't care when they come, provided they come.
You're certain they will come?
And I'm certain they will come because they will be very useful to the students, because they come at a time when students need computer, you know, to compete with other students of other countries. It's a numeric age, and we should give our students what they need, you know, to be part and parcel of that age.
Of course, Elie, he says it all. University students need computers.
Yeah, they need computer, but the thing is that...
Which they cannot all afford.
Which they cannot all afford, but then it is overpriced because he gave us the rightful prices, but the Minister of Higher Education has inflected the prices to show how good, how generous they are to the common Cameroonian, whereas they are the one who have impoverished those Cameroonian students. But on the other hand, comparatively, a poor country, if I may, like Rwanda, has done what we have not been able to do. So we live only on promises, on slogans, and now he wants to have to sweeten his bid to win the elections next year. He's going to bring it some days before the election. And since we have this poor analytical mind, including those students themselves, some of them might be forced into voting for him, whereas he doesn't deserve to be voted as president of this country again. Okay, we're not going to have any transition. We'll just jump next to our other sticky point. Since its onset in October last year, the protracted Anglophone crisis has been fetching moments of discomfort for a couple of natives of Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions, after hate speech accusations heaped on the likes of Peter Mafani Musonge, Chief Tabetando, and others. It is apparently the turn of, we mentioned one a couple of minutes ago, the mayor of Oboya, Patrick Ekema, and now Sama Francis. The former bâtonnier, Eddy Etawo, appears to have placed himself at the crux of a raging storm by calling on common law lawyers to return to the law courts. They started boycotting the courts in October. That was the genesis of the Anglophone crisis.
Yes. We must find out why the common lawyers boycotted the courts, because they felt that the common law was being affected by, was being controlled by lawyers or magistrates who did the civil law and many other grievances. Mm-hmm. So I think from what had happened, as far as I'm concerned, I think Sama's call is timely and is reasonable. Okay. As far as I'm concerned. Right. Because we are in a debate. We asked for the government to do some certain things to redress our legal system and our educational system. Of course. And to this extent, I think the government is doing quite a lot to redress those issues. He says, Elie Smith, he says the government has responded favorably to some of the demands placed on the table. Though not all, but I think it is enough. I think it is enough for the talk of war is dragging too much, and in the process, many people are suffering with it. I believe it is time for us to give a respite, take a respite, and reflect, and see how we can halt the talk of war and give prison the chance. Of course, so Barrister Sama Francis says the government has demonstrated sufficient goodwill to have common law lawyers go back to the courts. No, there's been the creation of benches at the Supreme Court. It never existed. There's been the introduction of a common law section at ENAM. I mean, these are big, giant steps ahead. Yeah, well, the thing is that the giant steps came because of this, the killings, the marginalization, and the humiliation of Anglophones who dare raise their heads above water to criticize the injustices that they are facing in this union for 56 years. And now the other thing is, well, the government is doing a lot of things, right? But it is a unilateral decision. Okay. This thing would have come out and given some credit if those who were championing the cause were free men and women. With whom the government was discussing one night before and then, yeah. But all of them are behind bars. And then the government comes up and now is coming up with all those things in a unilateral fashion. And some lawyers, not Sama, I'm very surprised at the wordings or declaration of Sama, because if you are coming out with something based on a negotiation or proposals, those who propose it would have been there to say, all right, yes, you have responded to 20 because it respected our recommendations. Okay. But when you sit willy-nilly, you decide to do things, it means that you don't even care about those who brought up the case in the first place. Sama says his life is under threat. He says he's been receiving anonymous death threats from here and there. But then he has been silent since the onset of the crisis. Eddy and his critics say it is not now he should come and poke his nose into what didn't concern him at the start. No, I think he's just being a concerned Cameroonian who thinks that why
Why voice your concern just now?
There's always a time for everything.
All
He
right.
has been a keen observer, and I think it's enough, and he has come up, to make his declaration. And I feel that his declaration, as far as I'm concerned, is timely and reasonable. The talk of war is too much, and there are too many heads that are suffering because of that. Little businesses are dwindling, are dying away. And many people, many things that are going wrong because of this crisis. There is time for us to take a respite and sit down over a table and think responsibly and see how we can forge ahead. And it cannot continue in the form of a talk of war.
Okay.
There must be some respite.
Elie Smith, there's an emerging fact is that the utterances made by Anglophones at this point in time, I mean, they should sit back and reflect on what they say before saying what they say. Because the barrister has come out to say that his statements were taken out of context by the Post newspaper.
His statement.
But we have an interview, a video version of the same interview.
No, his statement wasn't taken out of context. For example, there is one interview. I don't know if we'll have time.
I'll ask Donald to just run the interview. We'll just listen briefly to it and we conclude on that.
Therefore, and I've had time to analyze it, that there has been a massive redeployment of common law magistrates, most of them to the common law jurisdiction, and a commencement of redeployment, of a massive redeployment of civil law magistrates to the civil law jurisdiction, following the promise for the creation of a common law bench at the Supreme Court and in Enam, and an effective creation in the various state universities. I am personally overwhelmed by the fact that for the first time in the history of our country, a senior common law magistrate is appointed president of the judicial bench of the Supreme Court. I wish.
Thanks for coming, Eddy Etawo.
Thank you very much, Didi. I hope you invite me next time. And
We will.
I will always be there.
We'll definitely have you back sometime very soon. Elie was still in the house.
Yeah, we're still there and we'll still continue soldiering on.
And just to let you know that the new things coming up once again on Canal English, exclusively the coverage of the ongoing 27 Confederations Cup happening in Russia. We have reporters in Russia. We're going to have reporters across Cameroon. We'll begin presenting the matches as from tomorrow. Until then, see you and run out of trouble on the double.